"Sir, please don't leave her. She's freezing." The desperate voice cut through the icy night like a blade. David Beckham had barely stepped out of the charity gala in Mayfair when the shout made him turn sharply. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether the cold punch in his chest came from the wind or the panic rising in his throat. He spun around, scanning the sidewalk, and saw a scene that made the world around him stop. Under the dim glow of a street lamp, kneeling on the wet pavement, was a young homeless man in a tattered jacket. And leaning helplessly against his shoulder was an elderly woman wrapped in a thin, damp blanket. Beckham felt his breath catch. It was his mother. "Mom?" The word burst out of him as he ran, slipping slightly on the rain-soaked pavement. Margaret Beckham, 74 years old, the woman who raised him with quiet strength and warm hands, sat trembling, her skin pale and her eyes unfocused. Her white hair was wet with mist. She didn't appear to recognize where she was, or even who held her. The young man was trying to shield her from the wind with his own body, his shoulders shivering under the cold. "I found her wandering near Berkeley Street," he said, voice trembling from the cold. She looked confused, scared. People passed by her but nobody stopped. "I couldn't just leave her there." Beckham knelt down, heart pounding. "Mom? Mom, can you hear me?" His voice cracked as he touched her cheek, icy from the wind. She looked up at him with unfocused eyes, blinking slowly. Her lips parted. "David?" she whispered, though the recognition faded almost as quickly as it came. The young man swallowed hard. Up close, Beckham could see the exhaustion etched into his features. The dark circles, the cracked lips, the hands chapped by nights sleeping in freezing cold. But his eyes were kind, soft. There was no fear, no aggression. Only genuine concern. "I tried to warm her with my coat," he said, showing a threadbare jacket soaked with rain, "but it's not much." Beckham took off his own coat and wrapped it around his mother, lifting her gently into his arms. His chest tightened as he felt how cold she was. "Thank you," he said quietly. The words felt insufficient. Too small for what this stranger had done. The man shook his head immediately. "You don't have to thank me. Anyone would have done the same." Beckham almost responded, but then stopped himself because the painful truth was, no, not everyone would have. Most people had walked past. Most people hadn't even looked. The young man was the only one who stayed. "What's your name?" Beckham asked as he dialed emergency services with shaky hands. "Ethan," the man said softly. "Ethan Shaw." Ambulance sirens began echoing faintly through the streets. Beckham held his mother tightly as if afraid the cold would steal her away before help arrived. Ethan stepped back, shivering violently now that his thin blanket was no longer around him. Beckham noticed. "Here," Beckham said, reaching for his wallet with urgency. He pulled out whatever cash he had, several bills folded together, easily a few £100. "Please take this. You saved my mother." Ethan stared at the money as though it was burning. "I can't," he murmured. "You deserve it," Beckham insisted, pushing the bills toward him. Ethan stepped back again. "If I take it, it becomes a transaction," he said quietly. "I didn't do this for money." And before Beckham could argue, Ethan turned and walked away into the London fog, disappearing between the glowing windows of luxury boutiques and the cold silhouettes of office buildings. Beckham stood frozen on the pavement, the money still in his hand. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics gently placed Margaret on a stretcher and asked questions Beckham couldn't fully answer. His mind drifted repeatedly to the young man's thin jacket, his trembling hands, his refusal to accept help. For the first time in a long while, Beckham felt small, painfully, overwhelmingly small. He rode with his mother to the hospital, holding her hand the entire ride, silently urging her to stay with him. Hours later, in a bright examination room smelling faintly of antiseptic, a doctor explained the results. "Mr. Beckham, your mother showed signs of acute disorientation. This wasn't just exposure to the cold. We believe she is developing early-stage Alzheimer's." The words hit like ice water poured directly into his chest. Alzheimer's. The disease that slowly erased a person, memory by memory. The disease he had always prayed his family would never face. He sank into the chair beside the hospital bed, burying his face in his hands as the doctor continued. He barely heard the rest. All he could think of was how helpless she had looked, alone on the street, and the stranger who had held her when David wasn't there. A man with nothing had given everything he had to protect his mother. Beckham stayed at the hospital until dawn. When Margaret finally fell into a peaceful sleep, he stepped out into the cold London morning. And for the first time in years, David Beckham felt desperate. Not because of football. Not because of publicity or business deals. but because he had failed someone he loved, and only a stranger had been there to catch her. As he walked to his car, the image of Ethan lingered in his mind. The soaked jacket, the trembling shoulders, the complicated softness in his eyes. Beckham whispered to himself, "I need to find him." He didn't know why the words came out with such urgency, maybe guilt, maybe gratitude, maybe something deeper, but he knew they were true. He had to find Ethan. Not just to thank him, not just to repay him, but because something about that night, something about Ethan, felt bigger than coincidence. It felt like a beginning. 3 days passed in a blur of hospital paperwork, meetings with specialists, rearranging schedules, calling caregivers, and sitting for hours at his mother's bedside. He didn't sleep much, but he didn't complain, didn't think he had the right to. Whenever exhaustion overtook him, his mind returned to that moment on the street. Ethan bending over Margaret, shielding her with his own body. Each time the memory replayed, Beckham said the same thing. "I have to find him." And on the third afternoon he did just that. The sky was gray when Beckham returned to Mayfair, walking along the same sidewalks where Ethan had first appeared. Wealthy pedestrians passed him, wrapped in designer coats, barely glancing at the world around them. Beckham stopped several people, describing Ethan. Thin, dark hair, early 20s, worn clothing, very polite. Most shrugged. Some frowned. Others didn't even slow down. One woman scoffed. "There are dozens of them around here. They look the same." Beckham clenched his jaw but said nothing. He continued searching, every alleyway, every doorway, every bench, until finally behind a restaurant in Soho he heard voices. Low murmurs, laughter, the crackle of something burning. A group of homeless individuals huddled around a metal barrel with a small fire flickering inside. Among them, Ethan. The young man was sitting on the ground with his knees pulled close, hands stretched toward the warmth. His jacket looked even more tattered in daylight. Beckham approached slowly, hands open, as if not wanting to startle him. Ethan's eyes widened. "You came back." "I told you I would," Beckham said softly. They stepped aside, giving the others space. Beckham told him everything, the diagnosis, the long night in the hospital, his gratitude. Ethan listened quietly, his face falling at the mention of Alzheimer's. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "Your mother, she was very frightened that night." "You helped her," Beckham said. "You were there when no one else was." Ethan hesitated before answering. "You don't have to do this." "Do what?" "Come find me. Talk to me. People don't usually," he gestured vaguely. "They don't come back." Beckham took a breath. "I didn't come just to thank you. I came because I want to offer you something." Suspicion flickered across Ethan's features. "I don't want money," he said quickly. "It's not money," Beckham replied. "It's a job." Ethan blinked. "A job?" "Yes, at my youth training center. Proper work, proper pay. No charity, no publicity stunt. Just a chance." Ethan looked away, conflicted. "Why would you hire me?" "Because you showed more heart that night than most people show in a lifetime," Beckham said. "And because I believe in you, even if you don't believe in yourself yet." Ethan shook his head softly. "I'm not used to people believing in me." "Well," Beckham said, extending a hand, "get used to it." Ethan stared at the hand for a long moment. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, he shook it. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll try." Beckham felt a heavy knot loosen in his chest. The first step had been taken. They walked back through the alley together. For the first time in days, Beckham felt a spark of hope. Not just for Ethan, not just for his mother, but for himself. Because something inside him had shifted that night on the cold pavement, and maybe, just maybe, this was the start of a story neither of them could have written alone. The morning of Ethan's first day felt strangely heavy, as if the clouds over London had decided to sit lower than usual, pressing against the city. He barely slept the night before. The thought of stepping into a real training center, meeting real staff, being treated like a real employee rather than another invisible face on the streets, it was overwhelming, terrifying even. He woke up before sunrise. The others around the alley were still asleep, curled beneath blankets and cardboard, the fire barrel reduced to a few dim embers. Ethan quietly folded his thin blanket into his backpack, washed his face at a nearby public sink, and stared at his reflection in the scratched, fogged mirror. The face looking back at him wasn't the Ethan he used to know. This one had more shadows under the eyes, more weight in the silence, more history carved into his skin. "Don't mess this up," he whispered to himself. He didn't mean it as pressure. He meant it as a reminder that this might be the only chance he'd ever get, and he needed to meet it halfway. The training center was nearly an hour away, and Ethan walked most of it because he didn't want to spend the coins he had saved. The cold bit into his cheeks and the wind blew through the holes in his jacket, but he kept going. When the gates finally came into view, massive, polished steel with the club crest and Youth Academy logo engraved, Ethan felt like he didn't belong anywhere within 100 miles of the place. Then he saw Beckham standing in front of the entrance, hands in his pockets, smiling like this was just another day. "You made it," Beckham said, walking toward him. "I said I would," Ethan replied, trying to steady his voice. "And I'm glad you did." There was no pity in Beckham's tone. No sympathy framed as charity. Just sincerity. That alone was enough to loosen the tightness in Ethan's chest. They walked inside together. The place was enormous, the kind of facility Ethan had only ever seen in documentaries. Several pristine pitches stretched across the grounds, groundskeepers trimming the grass with precision. Players in training kits ran drills farther away. Coaches shouted instructions. Staff members hurried back and forth carrying equipment, clipboards, and training gear. The walls of the main hallway were covered in framed photographs. Youth players who had risen to professional ranks, Beckham himself at various stages of his career, inspirational quotes about hard work, character, and resilience. Everything felt impossibly clean, almost intimidating. A woman with curly dark hair, warm eyes, and a professional smile approached them. "Ethan, this is Claire," Beckham said. "She handles HR and staff onboarding." Claire extended her hand, and Ethan wiped his own on his pants before shaking hers. "It's great to meet you," she said kindly. "We've heard good things." Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. "Good things? About him?" "We'll get your paperwork sorted," she continued, "and then I'll take you to meet your supervisor." Ethan followed as she led him through the hallway. Each step felt surreal. Not long ago, he'd been sitting on a cold sidewalk with numb fingers. Now he was signing employment forms in a professional office, holding a pen with a trembling hand. He wrote his name slowly. Ethan Shaw. A name he hadn't written formally in a long time. Claire helped him fill out tax forms, emergency contact fields. He left it blank, uniform registration, and schedule assignment. "You'll be working in maintenance and facility support to start," she explained. "Hours are steady. Pay is weekly. And you'll have full access to the staff gym, laundry room, and showers." "Showers?" Ethan repeated, almost breathless. "Yes," she said gently. "Whenever you need." Something tightened in Ethan's throat. He wasn't used to comfort, or access, or being told he could use a shower whenever he wanted. Claire led him to the locker room, where a brand new staff kit was waiting. Black track pants, a fleece jacket with the Academy emblem, warm socks, and a pair of sports shoes. Ethan touched the fabric as if it might vanish. "These are, mine?" he asked hesitantly. Claire smiled. "Of course." He changed in the bathroom, took a long look in the mirror, and barely recognized himself. Not because he looked good, but because he looked human again. When he returned, Beckham was waiting near the equipment room, talking with an older man wearing a staff jacket and holding a clipboard. "This is George," Beckham said. "He's been here longer than any of us. He'll show you the ropes." George gave Ethan a friendly nod. "So you're the lad I've been hearing about. Good to finally meet you." Ethan shifted nervously. "It's nice to meet you too." George clapped him on the shoulder. "Come on, boy. Let's get to work." As they walked, George explained tasks. Checking equipment rooms, organizing cones and balls, restocking first aid kits, wiping down benches, cleaning locker areas, sweeping hallways, maintaining training spaces. It was physical work, but honest work, and Ethan found himself liking it. He moved carefully, almost reverently, afraid of making mistakes. But George encouraged him. "You're doing fine," he said. "Better than most first-day workers." Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years, a sense that he wasn't failing. Throughout the morning, Beckham observed from time to time, hidden behind corners or pretending to check his phone as Ethan carried crates or wiped down surfaces. There was pride in his eyes he didn't bother hiding. Around midday, Ethan was wiping down benches when a couple of younger staff members walked by. One whispered something, then both laughed. Ethan's stomach twisted, old memories of ridicule and judgment flashing back. But then one of them stepped forward. "You're new here, right?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan replied quietly. "Well, welcome. If you need help finding anything, just let us know." Her smile was genuine. Ethan relaxed, a little. During lunch break, Beckham walked over with 2 sandwiches and handed one to Ethan. "I can buy my own," Ethan started. "I know," Beckham interrupted with a soft grin. "But humor me. You've worked hard this morning." They sat on a bench overlooking the training pitch. Players darted across the field, coaches shouting drills. It felt like another world entirely. Ethan ate slowly, savoring each bite like it was his first meal in days. "You're doing well," Beckham said. "I'm trying," Ethan replied. "That's all I ask." There was a small silence before Beckham spoke again. "You looked nervous when those staff members came by." Ethan's shoulders tensed. I'm not used to people being nice to me," he admitted. "I get that," Beckham said gently. "But you're safe here. And you deserve to be treated with respect." Ethan swallowed hard. The rest of the day continued smoothly. Ethan worked diligently, listening carefully to instructions, double-checking details, making sure not to disappoint anyone. Every small task felt important. He wanted to prove Beckham hadn't made a mistake. When the shift finally ended, Ethan felt exhausted, but a different kind of exhaustion. Not the bone-deep fatigue of surviving the streets. A healthier kind. A purposeful kind. As he grabbed his backpack from the locker room, Beckham approached again. "How was your first day?" Ethan thought for a moment before answering. "It was good," he said quietly. "Really good. Better than I expected." "I'm proud of you," Beckham replied. Ethan looked away embarrassed. "Don't say that." "Why not?" Ethan's voice dropped. "Because I don't know how to handle it." Beckham softened. "Well," he said gently, "you'll learn." Ethan nodded, swallowing emotion. Before he could leave, Beckham added, "I'm picking you up tomorrow morning. Same time." "You don't have to." "I know," Beckham said. "But I want to." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He walked out of the training center feeling lighter than he had in years. The cold wind brushed his face, but for the first time he didn't shiver from loneliness or fear. He had a place to go. A reason to wake up. A sense of dignity he thought he had lost forever. But the most unexpected part was that he wasn't doing this alone. That week passed quickly. Ethan proved himself reliable, hardworking, and humble. He arrived early, stayed late, and asked thoughtful questions. Staff members warmed up to him. George taught him everything from equipment organization to repairing loose fixtures. Claire often checked in to see how he was adjusting. And Beckham kept showing up. Sometimes with coffee. Sometimes with encouragement. Sometimes just to talk. One evening, after finishing the day's tasks, Beckham invited Ethan to stop by his home for a small dinner. Ethan hesitated, uncomfortable stepping into Beckham's world, but eventually agreed. He walked through the front door of the elegant house, heart pounding. Everything inside felt warm and carefully arranged. A fire crackled softly in the living room. Framed photographs of the Beckham family lined the walls. Then he saw Margaret. Just like in the alley, just like on the icy night, her face softened immediately. "Ethan," she said with genuine warmth, "you're here." Ethan froze. "You remember me?" "Of course," she said, reaching out gently. "You're the kind young man who helped me." Beckham swallowed hard behind them. He hadn't heard her say a full, clear sentence in days. Ethan sat with her as she asked about his day, his work, his interests. She laughed softly when he shyly admitted he used to love sketching interior layouts. She touched his hand gently when he spoke about losing his parents. And the entire time, Beckham watched them from the kitchen doorway, his heart tight. Because his mother looked happier than she had in weeks. Because she smiled more in 1 hour with Ethan than in entire weeks with doctors and medication. Because Ethan's presence, gentle, patient, calming, seemed to anchor her in reality just a little longer. After dinner, when Ethan stood up to leave, Margaret held his hand tightly. "Promise you'll visit again," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "I promise." Beckham walked him to the door. "Thank you," Beckham said quietly. "For what?" Ethan asked. "For all of this." Ethan looked confused. But Beckham didn't explain. He didn't need to. Because both of them knew that something had begun between them. Something unexpected, something healing, something life-changing. A bond built not by charity but by humanity. Not by fame but by compassion. Not by blood but by connection. And neither of them knew it yet. But this bond was only going to grow stronger. Ethan grew into his new schedule the way a person grows into sunlight after years of living underground. At first, everything felt too bright, too warm, almost uncomfortable in its kindness. But slowly, day by day, he adjusted. The youth center became familiar. The staff became faces he recognized. London mornings felt a little less brutal. But the biggest change wasn't the job. It was his routine after work. Because almost every evening, Ethan found himself at Beckham's house. Sometimes for dinner, sometimes just for tea, sometimes simply to sit quietly while Margaret talked about memories that came and went like fragile waves. She always remembered him. Always. Even on days when she didn't recognize Beckham right away, she recognized Ethan. Sometimes she confused him for a young neighbor she had once adored. Other times she thought he was a volunteer from the community center she supported years ago. But she always smiled when she saw him. "Ethan," she would say in her soft, warm voice. "There you are." And every time Beckham saw something shift inside the young man, something tender and painful at once. One evening, as Margaret dozed off on the couch, Beckham and Ethan sat at the dining table with mugs of tea. The fire crackled behind them, casting golden shadows. "You're good with her," Beckham said quietly. Ethan stared into his tea. "I'm not doing anything special." "You are," Beckham insisted. "You're patient, calm, gentle. She feels safe around you." Ethan didn't respond right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "My mom was like that too," he said. "She used to talk to me about the same things your mother does. Sometimes random stories. Sometimes memories that didn't make sense. After my dad died, she changed a lot. I didn't understand it then. Now I do." Beckham didn't interrupt. "She died when I was 17, Ethan continued. "Just didn't wake up one morning." He took a trembling breath. "Being around your mom, it brings back good memories. Ones I thought I'd forgotten." Beckham swallowed hard. "Thank you for telling me," he said gently. "And thank you for being here, for her." Ethan shook his head. "I'm the one who should be thanking her. And you. All of this, it's more than I ever deserved." Beckham leaned forward. "You deserve far more than what life has given you so far," he said. "And I won't stop saying it until you believe it." Ethan looked away, blinking rapidly. The next few weeks moved quickly. Ethan improved at his job. Staff liked him. George praised him. Kids at the academy greeted him by name. He even started laughing again, quietly, shyly, like someone relearning a language. But the turning point came one rainy Thursday evening. He and Beckham were walking up the driveway when Ethan said softly, "I want to study again. Interior design. Or architecture." Beckham stopped mid-step. "That's amazing," he said, smiling widely. "I think you should." "I don't know how," Ethan admitted. "I don't have money saved yet. And it's been years. And what if I fail?" Beckham shook his head. "You won't fail. You don't know that." "I know you," Beckham said. "That's enough." Ethan exhaled shakily. "I want to try night classes. Maybe. If I can." Beckham placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out. One step at a time." It was the first time Ethan let himself imagine a future that didn't involve freezing nights or empty stomachs. Just possibility. But life never gives without taking something back. The next afternoon changed everything. Ethan was up on a ladder fixing a loose ceiling light in the hallway, a task George had assigned earlier. The hallway was quiet except for the hum of distant drills on the pitch. Then came the crack. A sudden shift. A metallic snap. Ethan barely had time to gasp before the ladder collapsed underneath him. His body hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through his leg. A sharp, stabbing agony. Then came a crushing weight in his ribs as he rolled onto his side, trying, and failing, to draw a full breath. Voices echoed. Footsteps rushed. The world blurred. When Beckham arrived, running, breathless, eyes wild, Ethan was barely conscious. Staff members hovered anxiously. Someone had already called an ambulance. Ethan, stay with me," Beckham urged, kneeling beside him. Ethan whimpered, gripping his thigh, face contorted in agony. "It hurts," he mumbled. "David, it hurts." "I know," Beckham whispered, holding his trembling hand. "Help is coming. I'm right here." At the hospital, doctors confirmed the damage. A broken femur, 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising. He would recover, but it would take weeks, maybe months. When Ethan woke after the surgery, groggy from anesthesia, Beckham was sitting beside him with dark circles under his eyes, still wearing the same clothes from the day before. "Hey," Beckham said softly. "You're safe." Ethan blinked, dazed. What happened?" "You fell," Beckham said. "But you're going to be okay. The doctors said the surgery went well." Ethan's breathing trembled. "The job. I can't work. I can't." His voice broke. Beckham immediately leaned in. "Stop. Don't worry about that." I don't have savings," Ethan whispered. 2 months, maybe more. They'll evict me. I can't go back to the S." He couldn't finish the word. "Streets." Beckham squeezed his hand. "Listen to me carefully," he said, voice steady. You're not going back to the streets. Not now. Not ever. Ethan shook his head weakly. I can't stay here. Hospital is. You're not staying here, Beckham interrupted. Then where? At my home. Ethan froze. No, he whispered. I can't. That's too much. You've done enough. It's not too much, Beckham said firmly. You are family now. The words hung in the air. Ethan stared at him, confused, overwhelmed, fragile. But why? He whispered. Because someone once saved the most important person in my life, Beckham said. And because you've become important too. Ethan's eyes filled. He looked away trying to hide the tears, but Beckham saw them. 3 days later, Ethan was carried into the Beckham residence, supported by 2 hospital aides. A room had been prepared for him. Soft pillows, a warm blanket, sunlight spilling in through large windows. Margaret was waiting in her armchair, smiling gently. Oh good, she said when she saw him. You're finally home. Ethan's throat tightened. For a moment he couldn't breathe. The days that followed were slow and painful at times, but strangely peaceful. Beckham visited him every morning before leaving for meetings, and every evening after training sessions. They ate meals together, talked, sometimes laughed. But it was Margaret who became the heart of Ethan's recovery. On her lucid days she brought him soup, sat beside him while he read, asked about his dreams, his sketches, his favorite colors. On confused days she wandered into his room looking scared, but calm the moment she saw him. Ethan, she'd whisper, relief softening her face. There you are. And he would smile softly even through pain. I'm here, he'd say. Sometimes she held his hand until she fell asleep. Sometimes he held hers. One night, when Beckham checked on them, he found Ethan gently guiding Margaret back to bed after she became agitated, whispering comfort into her ear. Despite the pain in his ribs, despite the cast on his leg, Ethan moved with tenderness that stunned Beckham. He stood at the doorway watching silently. Something inside him broke open, an ache so deep it startled him. Not sadness. Something like gratitude, connection, love in its purest, most human shape. When Ethan stepped out into the hallway afterward, he found Beckham waiting. You didn't have to do that, Beckham said softly. I know, Ethan replied, breathing carefully. But she needed me. Beckham looked at him for a long moment. You're a good man, Ethan. Ethan shook his head. I'm just trying. That's what makes you good. The bond between them deepened, quietly, naturally, like roots growing beneath the soil, unseen but strong. This wasn't charity anymore. This wasn't repayment for a night in the cold. This was family. Beckham realized it fully the night he overheard his mother whisper. He's the son I never had, in addition to the one I gave birth to. And Ethan realized it the first night Beckham fell asleep in the chair beside his bed, exhausted, the lamp still on, a book still open in his lap. Ethan looked at him, his chest tightening with something unfamiliar. Safety. Belonging. Hope. He whispered into the quiet room. Thank you for not giving up on me. Outside, London rain tapped softly against the window. Inside, 3 people, 2 broken by life, 1 fading slowly from it, held onto each other like fragile light in a dark world. And none of them yet knew that the hardest chapter was still ahead. But for the first time in years, Ethan wasn't afraid. Because no matter what came next, he wouldn't be facing it alone. Winter softened into early spring without much warning. The days grew a little warmer, the nights a little less cruel, but inside the Beckham house, time moved in a different rhythm. One measured not by seasons, but by Margaret's fading strength. Some mornings she woke up clear, asked for tea, commented on the sunlight in the garden, and even laughed at something Ethan said. Other days she didn't recognize the house at all. She would ask where her parents were. She would search for rooms that no longer existed. And sometimes, she would look at David with polite confusion, as if he were a stranger who somehow knew her name. But even on her worst days there was one constant. Ethan. She never forgot how he made her feel. When she saw him, her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing slowed. Fear loosened its grip. Sometimes she called him by different names, sometimes by none at all, but she always reached for his hand. And he always took it. As weeks passed, Ethan's body healed steadily. The cast was removed. The crutches came next. Physical therapy was agonizing at times, but he endured it with quiet determination. Beckham drove him to appointments, waited in the car, walked with him through the slow, painful steps of recovery. This hurts worse than falling, Ethan joked once between gritted teeth. Beckham laughed softly. Yeah, but this part heals who you really are. At the training center, staff welcomed him back like a returning brother. Kids ran up to hug him. George nearly crushed him in a hug and pretended to complain about being short-staffed while smiling wider than ever. But back at home, the laughter gradually thinned. Margaret's condition worsened. One evening, she wandered into the hallway in her nightgown, trembling, eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," she whispered. "They're coming for me." Ethan was the one who found her sitting on the floor near the stairs. He knelt, ignoring the ache in his legs, and wrapped his arms gently around her. "No one's coming," he said softly. "You're safe." She clung to him like a frightened child. David stood at the top of the stairs, unable to move, his heart shattering in slow silence as he watched a stranger become the anchor he could no longer be. Later that night, Beckham found Ethan sitting alone in the garden, staring at the sky. "You don't have to do all this," David said quietly, sitting beside him. "You've already given more than anyone could ask." Ethan didn't look at him. "I know," he said. "But I want to." David hesitated. "Why?" After a long silence, Ethan replied, "Because for the first time in my life, someone would do the same for me." Those words stayed with David. A week later, an unexpected visitor arrived. Charles Turner. Old friend. Business associate. Publicly respected. Privately ruthless. They sat in the living room while Margaret slept upstairs and Ethan was out back repairing a broken bench. "I hear you've taken in a stray," Charles said casually, swirling the wine in his glass. David's jaw tightened. "His name is Ethan." Charles smirked. "Oh, I know exactly who he is." Something in that tone made David uneasy. "He was in my program years ago," Charles continued. "Talented kid. Shame what happened." "What happened?" David asked slowly. Charles leaned forward. "Plagiarism. He stole a final design project. Nearly ruined my entire graduating year. I was lucky the truth came out." David felt his blood run cold. "That's not what Ethan said." Charles laughed lightly. Of course he'd deny it. After Charles left, David went straight to Ethan. They sat across from each other at the dining table in silence. "Is it true?" David asked gently. "About the project?" Ethan's face drained of color. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he exhaled and spoke. "He stole it from me." David felt the words like a physical blow. "I had proof," Ethan continued quietly. "Emails. Drafts. Time stamps. But my parents died 2 weeks later. I didn't fight. I didn't have strength left. The school believed him. I was expelled. I lost everything." David's fists clenched. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed," Ethan said. "And because I didn't want your help to feel like revenge. I don't want to live looking backward." David stood up abruptly. "I can destroy him with one call." Ethan looked up at him, firm. "No. Please don't." David froze. "He already took enough of my life," Ethan said softly. "Don't let him take my future too." David stared at him in disbelief. "After everything he did to you, you forgive him?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I don't forgive. I let go." David sat back down, overwhelmed. It was at that moment he fully understood something he had only sensed before. Ethan wasn't strong because he survived the streets. He was strong because he chose not to become bitter. From that day forward, David never again doubted the kind of man Ethan truly was. Spring arrived quietly. Margaret had one final lucid day. She asked David to bring Ethan to her room. They sat beside her bed, one on each side. She looked at them for a long time, eyes clearer than they had been in months. "I know my mind is slipping," she said softly. "Soon I won't remember names or faces." David shook his head, unable to speak. She turned to Ethan. "You brought light into my last season," she whispered. "You treated me with dignity when even I could not remember who I was." Tears rolled freely down Ethan's face. She reached up with trembling hands and joined theirs together. "You saved each other," she said. "Promise me, you won't ever let go of that." They both nodded. That night, Margaret fell asleep peacefully. And she did not wake again. She passed quietly, with David holding her hand on one side, and Ethan on the other. The funeral drew hundreds. Former teammates, officials, friends, strangers whose lives she had touched through charities. But it was Ethan who stood at the front and spoke the words that moved everyone to tears. "She taught me that a person's worth is not measured by what they own, but by how they love." After her passing, the house felt unbearably empty. For weeks, silence pressed against the walls. David lost weight. He spoke little. One night, he sat alone in the living room when Ethan quietly placed a cup of tea in front of him. "You don't have to go through this alone," Ethan said. David looked up, eyes rimmed red. "Stay," he whispered. "Please." Ethan stayed. A year later, everything looked different. Ethan graduated top of his class in interior design. David attended the ceremony like a proud father. Together, they launched a housing project for the homeless in London. Safe spaces with dignity, training centers, healing environments. They named it the Margaret Hope Center. On the opening day, reporters asked David why he invested so deeply. David answered simply, "Because one homeless boy once gave his last blanket to save my mother." Ethan added, "And because no one is more than 2 tragedies away from losing everything." That evening, they sat together in the garden where Margaret once loved to sit. The stars were soft above them. "What if you hadn't found me that night?" Ethan asked. David smiled gently. "Then I would still be searching for what really matters." They sat in silence. Not as benefactor and charity, not as celebrity and homeless man, but as family, chosen family. And somewhere in the quiet night, it felt like Margaret was smiling.